तर्केण मतिरापनेया प्रोक्तान्येनैव सुज्ञानाय प्रेष्ठा यां त्वमापस्सत्यधृतिर्बतासि त्वादृङ्नो भूयान्नचिकेतः पृष्टा जानाम्यहं शेवधिरित्यनित्यं न ह्यध्रुवैः प्राप्यते हि ध्रुवं तत् ततो मया नाचिकेतश्चितोऽग्निरनित्यैर्द्रव्यैः प्राप्तवानस्मि नित्यम् कामस्याप्तिं जगतः प्रतिष्ठां क्रतोरानन्त्यमभयस्य पारं स्तोमं महदुर्गायं प्रतिष्ठां दृष्ट्वा धृत्या धीरो नचिकेतोऽत्यसाक्षी तं दुर्दर्शं गूढमनुप्रविष्टं गुहाहितं गह्वरेष्ठं पुराणम् अध्यात्मयोगाधिगमेन देवं मत्वा धीरो हर्षशोकौ जहाति एतत् श्रुत्वा सम्परिगृह्य मर्त्यः प्रवृह्य धर्ममणुमेतमाप्य स मोदते मोदनीयं हि लब्ध्वा विवृतं सद्मनचिकेतसं मन्ये अन्यत्र धर्मादन्यत्राधर्मादन्यत्रास्मात्कृतात् अन्यत्र भूताच्च भव्याच्च यत्तत् पश्यसि तद्वद सर्वे वेदा यत्पदमामनन्ति तपांसि सर्वाणि च यद्वदन्ति यदिच्छन्तो ब्रह्मचर्यं चरन्ति तत्ते पदं सङ्ग्रहेण ब्रवीमि ओमित्येतत् एतद्ध्येवाक्षरं ब्रह्म एतद्ध्येवाक्षरं परम् एतद्ध्येवाक्षरं ज्ञात्वा यो यदिच्छति तस्य तत् एतदालम्बनं श्रेष्ठमेतदालम्बनं परम् एतदालम्बनं ज्ञात्वा ब्रह्मलोके महीयते।
हरि ओम। The eighth mantra where the importance of an acharya is being highlighted. He says, when the self is taught by an inferior intellect, it's not easy to be known. But when instructed by another, ananya prokte gatihi, there is no misunderstanding of it. The self being subtler than the subtlest, anupramanat, and also it is hi atakyam, which cannot be understood through reason. It cannot be argued. So the self being subtler than the subtlest indicates that the spiritual journey is a pursuit of nirguna upasana. The spiritual pursuit has to go beyond the idols, beyond the forms. The moment you are objectifying God, you are bringing down God to a form, to an identity, you are limiting it to a particular space. It takes you to a saguna upasana, which is worshipping with a form. Now, you must understand the Upanishads are catering to the highest caliber of student. So the Upanishads don't compromise. Therefore, it is important that any sadhak should not lose the inspiration or should not misunderstand the texts, because any uh, guru only caters to the level of the student. So the conversation here is between a qualified guru and a qualified student. So what else can you expect? So this is the highest transaction of Atma Vidya. So the self, that being subtler than the subtlest, means it is so deep, it is so minute, means it is somewhere deep in the core of your personality. For that, you don't have to travel any distance to experience God. There is no more traveling required to see God. One who truly wants to realize it will travel inward. So spiritual path is an inward journey, an introverted journey. So in the name of spirituality, do not take an outward journey. It is just an external show of religiosity. It doesn't make you any more spiritual. Ultimately, it's irrelevant where you are, because the real realization is within you. That is where we last concluded. Right? We shall continue with the ninth mantra, please.
नैषा तर्केण मतिरापनेया प्रोक्तान्येनैव सुज्ञानाय प्रेष्ठा यां त्वमापः सत्यधृतिर्मतासि त्वादृङ्नो भूयान्नचिकेतः पृष्टा.
This knowledge which thou hast obtained, in fact, there's no knowledge given yet by Lord Yama, but the Lord Yama feels Nachiketa is already very knowledgeable. This knowledge that which thou hast obtained is not attainable by reasoning. Na tarpena matihi. Apaneyam is not attainable. O dear one, prishtaha. When taught by another, it is easy to comprehend. Thou art fixed in truth. Satya dhriti. Dhriti is conviction. Satya dhritihi, beautiful word. Thou art fixed in truth. O Nachiketa, may we have an inquirer like thee. Prashtaha means the inquirer. Tva drakaha, like you. So the first two lines is, as it were, a continuation from the previous mantra. Because he took a mention, it said that the self is beyond reason. Now he actually mentions it here. This knowledge is not attainable through reasoning. And the last two lines of the mantra is actually glorifying Nachiketa. So the word he says, na apaneya, is not attainable through tarpena. Atman is not attainable through logic. So you can't talk logic and reason to grasp Atman. Nor can you can't assert the self through logic, nor can you negate the self through logic. You can't prove it. You can't prove the existence of Atman through logic. Nor can you say, oh, I don't think all the atheists, if they were to give all the logic and reason, they can't dismiss of the existence of Atman. So with your intellect, you can't prove its existence nor negate its existence. Why is it so? Because Atman is beyond logic and reason of your intellect. The Atman, which is the truth, is not a theme which can be understood by the intellect. It is not an extract that you can gather and say, oh, I've got the extract of it. It is not an intellectual conclusion. It is not a rational conclusion. Interesting thing, yet all the time we are rationalizing. All through the classroom, we are using the intellect. And yet we got to understand it is something which cannot be grasped by the intellect. Now, why is it the fundamental thing, the main, you can say the punchline, the real statement which justifies that intellect cannot capture Brahman or Atman is because Atman is not an object of thought. If you can highlight these words, you get the concept. Atman is not an object of thought. Means with my intellect, I can capture any idea, I can capture any concept, any ideology, but I can't capture the thought of God in an idea. Why can't I capture? Because Brahman is not an object of thought. What is Brahman? It is that the divine spark, you may call it. It is the divine spark which actually vitalizes the mind and intellect. It is that which directs the mind and intellect. So the mind and intellect cannot capture the mere instruments they are, cannot discover the energy which is behind them. It cannot capture what is that energy which vitalizes them. It cannot. So the mind and intellect are vitalized by this Atman. So how can it go back to the very source and find out who that source is, what that source is? It is not possible. Only the frontiers of the terrestrial world can be captured by the intellect, not beyond the frontiers. So you can go to the boundary of the terrestrial world, and where the terrestrial world ends, that's where the transcendental realm begins, and the intellect cannot fathom the transcendental realm. It is beyond its ability. Therefore, he says, thou which has obtained is not attainable by reasoning. So therefore, any amount of reasoning you have, you must ensure that the reasoning doesn't develop into an ahankar. Because one of the first attributes of the intellect is ego. I know. We come to a notion that I know it. So just to arrest that kind of an intellectual arrogance, you must understand what I am seeking is not something which can be attained by the intellect. Then you can ask me, sir, why am I using my intellect then? Why am I going through this intellectual exercise? Why should I get up and strengthen my intellect? Why are we harping on the intellect, on the buddhi? The answer to it is in the next mantra. But all we must understand is Atman is not an object of thought. Atman is the subject that enlivens the thought. Since it is the subject that enlivens the thought, it can't be captured by the thought. So the Shastra Pramana or the Veda Pramana We have been mentioning of this. So since it can't be captured by your tool, which is the best tool you have is intellect, and that is incapable of comprehending. Therefore, who is authority? The guru who has experienced the self, he becomes authority of the Atman. You can't verify that with your intellect, nor can you negate that which is being asserted by a guru and say, no, on what basis you say you are realized? You can't negate it. With my intellect, I can't challenge your experience of self-realization, nor can I say, oh, yes, my guru is self-realized. How can your intellect fathom it? If a student comes and says, oh, that man is a realized soul, what are you talking? You mean to say you are able to capture that experience of that man with your limited intellect? Don't be carried away by your emotion. Don't be carried away by your devotion to that person. Be grounded. The moment you are being superlative, that means you have not got the sense of reason. So with reason, you can't assert a man's experience, nor can you negate and say, oh, this man is not realized. On what basis are you saying? Your intellect is not capable. So what is conveying the self is the Atman. That's what he says. When taught by another, one who is not merely caught in the words, when taught by another, it is easily comprehensible. So Agama tradition, the tradition of the Guru Shishya Parampara, the Veda Pramana, the Shastra Pramana is the only authority of Atma Vidya. You cannot assert it with the intellect. The terrestrial world, Situji, you're asking something. What is that a question, Situji?
Hariom Guruji, I just wanted you to explain what is the boundaries of this transcendental world. What is?
No, I didn't say boundaries of. I said boundaries of the terrestrial world.
Beyond terrestrial is transcendental. Where does the transcendental start?
Where terrestrial ends.
It doesn't may not end anywhere. Maybe all pervading.
No, the world has to have an end, no?
Yeah.
Sir, in order to describe Brahman, they describe Brahman in order of subtlety. An order of subtlety means it must be pervasive. In one of the satsangs, remember, we would have discussed this in detail. The pervasiveness of Brahman, it pervades all that you know, and it also pervades the unknown. This is the standard definition given for something which is all pervasive. What is known to you? We know the waking, dream, deep sleep. Atman is there in the waking state, in the dream, in the deep sleep. Also, it's there in the fourth state. So all our terrestrial experiences are limitations of your ability to conceive it. If you ask 100 years back, what was the definition or the boundaries or the frontiers of the world, what would have science described 100 years back? It could conceive, it could perceive a certain realm. It could see the moon, it could see the stars. It said that is something seen, there's something there. 100 years later, the powerful telescopes have gone far beyond what our naked eyes can perceive. And it said there are these Milky Ways, these galaxies, which are millions and millions of years old. They also are part of this solar system. I could be wrong in the terms, but it's all part. All that is now known to us. Can't we say so? So the very definition of the terrestrial realm is expanding. Perhaps 100 years down the road, there'll be far, far, far more powerful telescopes which can explore into the unknown and say, hey, there are realms which we did not know existed. That also is terrestrial. Just because you are not aware of the terrestrial frontier or it's limited, you can't say that's all it is. So our knowledge of the known is expanding, but Brahman is all in the known. It is also in the unknown. It is beyond it. And that beyond is transcendental, which can't be captured in words. So if you ask me, what is that transcendental? As I first said, it is beyond the terrestrial. Now, what is terrestrial? That itself we are still discovering. So you can't come to a full stop and say, this is terrestrial. That also is relatively infinite, all pervading. It's staggering. It is staggering to conceive that our understanding of terrestrial itself is incomplete. How can we understand the transcendental? It baffles our intellect. Therefore, he says, you don't strain your intellect so much because it can't be understood with your intellect. So there is a limitation to capture what that Brahman is through the intellect. Though we may be given definitions, but we can't fathom what that is, sir. Does that help, or is that what you're looking at?
One somewhere I read one indirectly infers a realized person is the moment you go and sit even a little far off from him and look at him, you are at peace, and all questions will get answered.
Sorry, what are you referring to? I lost the track.
Somewhere I read when you realize soul, you infer indirectly by just when you sit near him or even far off him, you totally get into peace, and all your questions get answered.
From now on, I am also not going to answer any questions. By answering questions, I am not being understood. I think by not answering, I'll be understood from now on. So thank you for the tip, Setuji. I'll try to practice that. Yes, I've learned something today. All the time struggling to answer the questions. No more interactions. No more raising your hands. I will only be silent from now on. Panigraji, please take a note. You will come, but you will not be given a mic, nor will you be given access to say anything, because from now on, I am going to be Maunam. No, sir,
the inference, see, it is not, as you very much said, with our intellect, we cannot grasp at all. But they say a saint is one with whom the moment you sit near him, you get into peace.
No, there is no denying of any of that. But what silence does is you instantly become introspective. Moment you're engaging your organs of action, you're speaking or you're talking, speech is an organ of action. And the moment you're active, you're extroverted. So the moment the guru doesn't dialogue with you, he remains in silence and allows you to remain in silence. He is giving you an opportunity to go inward. That's what the whole philosophy around the context you're talking. And it gets exemplified in presence of a man of realization. There's no doubt about it. But whenever you look at an opportunity or create an opportunity to go inward, you instantly become self-introspective. You become conscious of your own, firstly, imperfections, and then perhaps you go inward and then you realize who you are, what you are. That's the reason I have always maintained, and you have noted in particular amongst everybody, what helps you is not this Shravana, this dialogue and satsang. What will help you is Brahma Muhurtam 4 to 6 Manana, where nobody is lecturing to you, but you are lecturing to yourself. Remember that. If that Manana If that swadhyaya, if that dhyana, if that sadhana is not done, all of this knowledge is like the breaking news in a newspaper this morning. It becomes garbage tomorrow. No sooner the man in the house has read the papers, later in the day it is used as garbage paper. Sometimes even before using it, what are you using? The lady in the house says, morning to evening, you're only reading that piece of garbage. No problem, never mind. The paper man delivers the paper, instantly is used as to wrap the vegetables. Fresh veggie are wrapped up and kept in the fridge. What is it? So there is no denying of the fact that manana is the means for realization, not Shravana. Shravana is to pass with the raw materials, sir. I am only doing a laborer's job of passing the raw material to you. I am a laborer. I put laborious effort so that I can do the labor of teaching this knowledge to you. I am no different than a spiritual laborer. I'm sorry to say. So I am talking, and you will take notes. That is not going to help you. But what's going to help you is you being with yourself. And that is no better time than Brahma Muhurta. So there's no two way about it, sir. So the introspection, internalization of wisdom is going to give you the self. Not being informed of the self will not give you the self. So I'm only informing you. There's no contradiction in that established fact. Vijay ji.
Hare Krishna. I had a question about the Saguna Upasana. Can we consider the form that we pray to, because we do the ceremony to bring the life into the form, that as though the Lord is present in that form. Can't the form be like act as a bridge between the material and take us into transcendental? Is that not a pathway? Because if the subtlest is present everywhere and we are invoking the subtlest into the form to be present, then are we not interacting with the transcendental through the process of our faith?
I like the last word you used, faith. It is your faith that you have bestowed in that process of worship, connects you to whatever you want to connect with. So it's all about how you condition your mind to experience. Like we've been conditioned to associate certain sounds as spiritual. The moment you enter a temple, you can hear the sound of a conch or the bells in a temple. It has a certain resonance you associate with spirituality. Certain fragrances you associate with spirituality. It's a conditioning. So everything is conducive. But ultimately, what leads you is the Nirguna Upasana. This is an established fact that form will lead you to the formless. But when somebody needs a form, that is all that is required for him. So there's no denying that. So you use that diligently, as we use. I remember using this word in the last satsang. You got to use it diligently so that it takes you to a higher spiritual ladder. Everything in life you have to drop one day. You can't hold on to anything eternally. So the Shastras say you have to let go of this knowledge also one day. That's what he's saying. You're holding on to this intellect so dearly. Understand the intellect with which you're trying to understand the knowledge will not help you to understand the ultimate experience. It will not give you the ultimate experience. So you must be detached to the very process that you are in. intense intellection going on, I must understand inwardly that it's not going to help me. So if it applies to the subtlest tool, which is the intellect, it will apply to every other gross tool that you're engaging to identify with God, isn't it? The principles holds the same to everything. Anything terrestrial cannot give you transcendental. Full stop. It can't give you, it can lead you to it. So keep picking up all that you need to pick up to get to the transcendental. Ultimately, you've got to drop the terrestrial to get to the transcendental. That is what they're saying.
So is a mantra considered terrestrial or
Everything is terrestrial. The Shastra itself is terrestrial. What are you talking of a mantra? The Guru is terrestrial. The mantra is terrestrial. The idols are terrestrial. The gods are terrestrial. All these are symbols of Brahman. So are terrestrial tools we have picked up. Conveniently, we have picked up the right things to remind me of Brahman. Is it not?
So are you saying Lord Ram, Lord Krishna, all these other forms that have come, are they all terrestrial?
Yeah, they came and gone, no? They had a birth and a death. A physical personality, they were physical personality. Are they not?
Well, they came because the subtlest is present in all forms, right? Just because they came as a terrestrial form does not make them
The form is perishable. The Atman in them that they realize is imperishable. You as Vijay are perishable, not the Atman in you. The Atman in you doesn't perish. The Atman in me doesn't perish. You and I are still trying to understand the Atman. The Lord perhaps has attained that sense of the state of realization. So he is imperishable in that sense. The form perishes. Anything in the world has to perish. That is the very nature of the world. So why are we can't question the fundamentals here. We're not saying the Lord Krishna is perishable. The form is perishable, but not the self. The self which expressed through the Lord, that is imperishable.
So,
all right, sir.
Splitting here. Thank you. Very,
Right.
very fine understanding.
Yeah, I'm a very fine person, sir.
That you are.
Thank you, Ji. Right. Now, in the next mantra, I'm going to explain how can we justify that all finite. What is the point of putting all these efforts? Now, in the second half of the mantra, he says, thou art are fixed in truth. So obviously Nachiketa Lord Yama has been in awe with Nachiketa. He is glorifying Nachiketa. He said, thou art are fixed in truth. May we have an inquirer like thee. It's an ardent cry of all true gurus or true teachers. Every teacher will want to have a student like Nachiketa. So he is almost glorifying him to a point and saying that you've already become the truth man. Sadly, gurus are judged by the quality of students. So I also have some students. I don't know. I don't want to tell much about it because I will talk about myself only. Jokes apart. Here, Nachiketa is so profoundly established in truth. Means he is so clear what he wants to seek. There's no two way about it.
जानाम्यहं शेवधिरित्यनित्यं न ह्यध्रुवैः प्राप्यते हि ध्रुवं तत् ततो मया नाचिकेतश्चितोऽग्निरनित्यैर्द्रव्यैः प्राप्तवानस्मि नित्यम्.
Now, in this mantra, he spells it out, which I wanted to clarify here. He said, I know that treasure is transient, for that which is eternal is not obtained by the ephemeral. Yet the Nachiketa fire has been propitiated by me with perishable things, and I have obtained the eternal. Interesting choice of words, and you need to understand what the words convey. When he uses the word eternal in the first line, I know that treasure is transient, for that which is eternal is not obtained by the ephemeral. The first eternal is Ushama, US. You are my Nachiketa.
The
Yes,
wisdom,
US.
the knowledge.
Can you read that line for me? You see it on your screen?
Yeah, I know the treasure is transient, for that which is eternal is not obtained by the ephemeral.
Okay. Now, what do you get from the second half of the line? That which is eternal is not obtained by the ephemeral. What eternal is he talking about?
Obtained from the world.
Yeah, from is different. What is it? Eternal here refers to Brahman. The infinite cannot be obtained by the ephemeral. Ephemeral means passing. Anything from the world cannot give you Brahman. Okay. I allow you to write down. So when he says eternal is not obtained by the ephemeral, Brahman cannot be gained through anything finite. Finite cannot give you infinite. That's what that word means. So the word eternal refers to the infinite. Okay. Okay, US. Thank you. Ashwati, read the second half of the mantra.
Yet the Nachiketa fire has been propitiated by me with perishable things, and I have obtained the eternal.
Isn't there a contradiction?
Because you're using perishable things to obtain the eternal.
He says, I have attained the eternal through Nachiketa fire. If you followed in the previous section of the Upanishad, he said all the yajna and sacrifices, he calls it Nachiketa fire. Means the yajnas and sacrifices that you perform. He says, I have attained the eternal through Nachiketa fire. Isn't that contradictory to the first half of the mantra?
Yes.
So my job is to make you all see the contradiction. So the second eternal, which he is talking about, is not in the absolute sense. Here he talks of eternal. Second eternal is in a relative sense known as Swargaloka or Brahmaloka, where relatively you don't die. Relatively you have lived for eternal years, means you will be remembered. A man who has done great service is remembered. Have we not all read in our schools, King Ashoka was called the Great, and you had to write reasons why King Ashoka was called the Great? I don't think, Ashwati, you would have written about King
No.
Ashoka. For that, you have to be born and studied in India. Just by saying I'm an Indian root is not going to help you there. Right. Now, why was King Ashoka called the Great? He was called the Great because he dug wells for the people. He planted trees for the people. He built homes for the people. All line used to end with for the people, for the people, for the people. Therefore, he became eternal. So even today, I take reference of King Ashoka, the great. King Janaka was the great. So because of the great yajnas, the great sacrifices, the life, they lived a life of sacrifice. They didn't cook for themselves. So relatively, you will not die. You will be remembered for eternity. So what this mantra is giving, Lord Yama is comparing himself, what he was as a seeker to Nachiketa. That's the interesting part. So Yama is comparing himself to his student, what he was when he was a seeker. And he, as it were, accepts his foolish actions and the consequences. He is, what is he saying? Anything resulted out of a perishable thing, anything resulted out of a perishable thing can produce a fruit which is equally perishable. So anything perishable cannot give you the imperishable result. Isn't it? Anitya Shevadi, impermanent treasure, transient. So when do you get the relative eternal? Gayatri, when do you get the fruits which are relatively eternal? I hope you understand the question.
Relative eternal fruits we get at the transactional level only in the world, like whatever maximum you go, the fruits you get it is something which will be perishable only.
Repeat the question.
What is the fruit of this eternal?
When do you get the fruits of relatively eternal? Means question is, when do you get that experience of Brahmaloka? When do you experience Brahmaloka?
Highest level of this transactional, highest level when you go there, that is the time we get it. Means you should be eligible to reach to that Brahmaloka and Swargaloka.
Adhisari, question is, when do you reach it?
Highest point of a jnani.
Ayyo. Highest point of jnani is self-realization, no?
At our level, we don't know, na? We don't see him. So
No. Forget your level, my level. We are talking of logic. What actions give you Brahmaloka? Okay, to make it easy for you, what actions give you Narakaloka? What is Narakaloka? Adu theriyada. Okay, you have transcended all these lokas. Very good. Very good for you. Yes, Setuji. She's in a different loka this morning.
Selfless actions gives Brahmaloka, and selfish action take us to Narakaloka.
In a way, you should say that heightened of unselfish actions. Height of unselfish actions will give you Brahmaloka or Swargaloka. Selfish actions will give you Narakaloka. Isn't it, Gayatri Ma? When you're selfish actions, you go through hell. What is Naraka? Is hell. Height of terrestrial, eternal, ephemeral. Sorry, eternal terrestrially, we are saying eternal terrestrially means limited relative level means you are remembered for good. When do you become immortal in the minds of people? When you have done some sacrificial work, unselfish work, selfless work. So Brahmaloka is a fruit obtained when you perform what the mantra says, Nachiketa fire. When you perform Nachiketa fire, you get Brahmaloka. But you can't get Atman, you can't get Brahman through Nachiketa fire. With sacrifices, you can't get Brahman. What you get is Brahmaloka. That's all.
Brahmaloka
So
and
this,
Svargaloka are same.
sir, they are slightly different in 5-star hotel and 7-star hotel, sir. And the difference, 7-star hotel is slightly better than 5-star hotel. So Brahmaloka is said to be a superior most of all heavenly pleasures. I don't want to get into objectifying what those pleasures are. We have to understand. Okay, wa?
It's all in ourselves.
Sorry. They are only saying that these are all heavenly experiences, but we understand hell and heaven are only your states of your mind. You can go through that heavenly experiences in your own mind. It's not a geographical location that you're transported to and you're brought back. There's no to and fro transportation going on there. It's a mental frame of mind. Okay, Ji? Those who only have got 1 star, they'll say, this is my all-star. That logic we don't accept. But still there is 7-star, which is Brahmaloka. This is what they're saying. Yes. Vijayji.
So is Brahmaloka like the highest point?
From what we know, sir. From what we've been told. In the world, in terms of worldly pleasures, it's not Brahman. Brahma, sir, Brahma is the creator of the world.
Correct.
Brahman is the very source of the world. The origin of the world has come from Brahma. Brahma also has come from Brahman and he has spitted out the world. From Brahman, Brahma has come, and what Brahma has done, he has created the world. So therefore, Brahma is said to be the creator of the world. Brahman is the very source from where the whole world has sprung, including Brahma.
So in this verse, the verse is saying, I propitiated and has been propitiated by me with perishable things, and I've obtained the eternal. So the eternal he's talking about, is that he's talking about Brahmaloka?
Correct. Because he says, I have attained. Because, see, you must read the lines. Can I have the mantra again, please, ma? See, if you go with simple logic, break the mantra into 2 halves. The first half of the mantra, he says very clearly, everything in the world is transient, and with the transient or with the eternal, you cannot attain the with the ephemeral, you can't attain the eternal. Is that all right?
Mm-hmm.
Which means with anything in the terrestrial world, with the ephemeral, with the transient, you can never get to the eternal. That means you can't gain infinite through the finite.
Correct.
Clear?
Correct.
Now, move on to the second half. Yet, means in spite of it, I have done Nachiketa fire. And with what have I done Nachiketa fire? With perishable things. And what have I attained? I have attained the eternal. If the first line be true, the second line can't mean the same thing. Isn't it?
Correct.
So therefore, we are saying the second line, where you say, I have obtained the eternal in the last section of the mantra, that word eternal refers to Brahmaloka or Svargaloka, which are fruits of sacrificial fire. That's a clue there. So when you perform sacrificial deeds, you are only transported to Brahmaloka. You will not get Brahman, because I'm only using finite effort. Finite can never give me infinite. So when you perform unselfish work, you get Svargaloka, Brahmaloka.
So relatively eternal. Not
Relatively eternal, not the permanent eternal. So the word eternal in the mantra is being justified what the first word eternal means, what the second word eternal means. You need to have that clarity.
Thank you.
Right. See, if you must remember the three types of actions that one can perform. If you go back to your notes, in the 17th mantra, in the first part, I have mentioned it very clearly. There are four types of actions, the four paths. Let me mention it so that you take a clear note of it. I'm repeating it, which is what is being said in the Shastras. It will help in the understanding of this mantra and the next mantra. So first, okay, there are four parts based on the four types of actions one can perform. The first is when you perform merely selfish actions, you get what is known as papa, which is you are committing sin. You are subjected to the cycle of birth and death. Second is when you perform unselfish actions, marker only unselfish actions, you get what is known as Swarga Loka, which is you attain punya. This is also known as the path of return. The third is when you perform unselfish plus you perform selfless actions plus you meditate, then you get what is known as Brahmaloka, plus you get what is known as Krama Mukti. Which is liberation in stages. I'll explain. The fourth type of actions are the highest, where the seeker only performs selfless actions, where he gets what is known as Kaivalya Mukti, which is direct liberation, which is indeed a rarity. So these are the four types of actions one can perform. So the difference in the what's happening here? Yeah. So the difference in the third and the fourth category is the third category, unselfish actions, are far superior than the second category. So you get Brahmaloka, so superior heaven, as we have been told. And since you club it with selfless actions and you also perform meditation, you will attain moksha, you will attain the goal of realization. But since you have performed unselfish work, you will have to enjoy the fruits in Brahmaloka. Unnecessarily, you're delaying your liberation. This is also known as path of no return. So the path of return are selfish fellows. Path of return can also be unselfish people. Path of no return is unselfish plus selfless plus meditation, and only selfless actions and meditation leads you to Kaivalya. Yes, Vijayji. I can't hear you. Yeah.
So where does the concept of Shivalok, Golok, all these other loks, like at what stage does that come?
So they're all not, the Shastras don't talk of them, sir. All I can say. There are other texts which may mention of them, but when we talk of the Veda, which are the authority, they only talk of these worlds. Other textbooks may talk of other worlds to appease a seeker or an audience, but the Shastras, the Vedas only talk of this. So this is authority, nothing else.
Is it, can we conceive that the direct liberation through Kaivalya Mukti could land us in Shivalok and Golok?
Sir, this Shiva are all your imaginary objects for your divinizing God. You are just trying to attune to Brahman through a form. Shiva is again, what is Shiva? Shiva is only one of the manifested powers of Brahman in the world. So you must get the definitions right. From the Shastras, from the Vedas, all the gods and goddesses, the plural, I'm repeating it once and for last. You people must do reflection and don't keep coming back at it. You must do enough swadhyaya, 70 to 80% reflection, 20% is information. Whenever the Shastras use the word gods, Gods, that refers to the manifested power of that one God, which is Brahman. Brahman is the formless reality that is the ultimate goal, which is self-realization or God realization. That is Brahman. It is formless. The various gods that we have created or that has been presented to us are the manifested powers in the world, so that we use them to get to Brahman. They are tools to help us to get to Brahman. So when they say Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwara, they are the powers of Brahma is creation, Lord Shiva is destruction, which is nothing but maintenance of the world. So these are the powers which are manifesting in the world, which you and I experience day in and day out. There's creation, destruction, which is maintenance. What is happening? Night is dead, the day is born. Morning is born, sorry. Morning dies, afternoon born. Afternoon dies, evening born. Evening dies, night born. Night dies, morning born. The birth and death of these phases of the day maintains your day. So every phase of your life, everything in life is creation, destruction, maintenance. They have only divinized it. So the gods are purview to the terrestrial world. Gods represent that singular God, Brahman. Gods are not God. Gods are not Brahman. Gods are symbols of Brahman. Symbol doesn't become the goal. Symbol represents the goal. The goal is Brahman, the formless reality, which is also called Atman, which has no name, no form, no birth, no death, which is not the case to the gods. So it is the job of the gurus to highlight what these roles, these gods and goddesses play in our life, in our spiritual growth. They are meant to raise you to the level, ultimately to get you to Brahman. So all these gurus who attain self-realization have gone beyond the gods and goddesses to attain self-realization, which has no name, no form, no identity.
In the Shastras, they've given a timeline for Brahma, and Brahma is like a position rather than an individual. But there is no timeline given for Sadashiva Lok or Vishnu Lok, where it perishes after a certain cycle.
Yeah, that's what it is. I think it is 4.32 billion human years. They give a finite number for the world to perish. When it perish, there will be pralaya, prabhava. Again, there's dissolution. They will again will be rise. The whole world will rise. So again, is all that. The moment you say there's a death, it means mortal. It means it is perishable. It is transient. It is the world. Brahman is beyond prabhava and pralaya.
No, my question was that in the scriptures, they don't talk about a timeline for Vaikuntha Lok or Golok or Shivalok, which
The
perish.
Shastras don't even talk of these lokas. I'm repeating myself. The Shastras, the Vedas don't talk of it. What they talk is what you have seen. What you are talking of are other textbooks, subsequent, not the primary text, don't talk of it, don't even recognize that. These are all that have emerged from other textbooks. So the Shastras are the authority, which the Vedas, the Upanishads, these people are the authority. None of you scan through the Vedas, the Upanishads, they don't talk of it. Either you take it on faith or you can explore 286 Upanishads. Otherwise, you can read 108. If not, you can read 11. Of the 11, I'm teaching all the 5 to you. You take at least these 5 as a pramana and read them and see whether they talk of any of these lokas. Okay, sir. I'll have to leave it at that. Right. So there are questions that Panigraj is asking. Don't we use the finite to comprehend the infinite? Similarly, don't we try to conceptualize the imperishable to the tools which are perishable? So it is not possible. That's what in the previous mantra I said. You can't conceive the self. It is incomprehensible. So with the finite equipments, which is your body, mind, and intellect, we only have got these 3 equipments, nothing beyond that. So through these equipments, you can't get to the Brahman because it is beyond, it is imperishable. It is transcendental. Terrestrial effort cannot give you the transcendental. So the point we are trying to establish here is finite cannot give you the infinite. Then you may say, so why are we struggling with all this effort? Why all this drama going on? To which they say, the finite efforts of gaining this knowledge and attaining this wisdom and development of your intellect is only meant to take care of finite obstacles. Finite effort can only take care of the finite obstacles. What is the obstacle between you and God? Panigraji, what is the obstacle between you and God?
Guruji, I was just trying to understand. I was trying to understand a very basic kind of thing. Let's say to appreciate and understanding what is light, we need to have darkness, or the vice versa. So unless we know what is finite, we cannot realize what is infinite.
All right.
So, I think the same logic also holds good. Supposing we want to conceptualize what is the state of self-realization or what is Brahman, we have to have certain this thing forms like Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh, or for that matter, we use these things as tools. But the ultimate objective is to go beyond that. That's what I.
All right. Yes, no, we are not changing anything in the dynamics. It's all existent. We are only telling what it implies. We are only telling what its purpose. So there are very specified facts which the gurus who have attained realization have mentioned this. So there's no denying, we can't challenge this wisdom with our intellects. Nor can we say, oh yes, what they're saying is correct. On what basis you say? As I said in the previous mantra, our intellects can't ascertain it, nor can it deny it. So this is a fact of it. You got to take it, gulp it down. It can be a bitter pill. You got to gulp it down. Now, the question I was asking Panigraji is that finite efforts cannot give you the infinite, as you asked. But finite efforts can take care of the finite obstacles between you and God. The finite obstacle between you and God, between me and God, is the desires and the vasanas. So what the finite effort, the reason you are engaging your intellect with the wisdom, the reason you're trying to imbibe wisdom through the intellect is to arrest and checkmate the mind's desires and your vasanas. So when you remove the finite effort, with finite effort, what you can only do is remove the finite obstacles. When the finite obstacles are removed, what you attain, what remains is the infinite. In fact, you don't attain infinite davat. You're already that infinite self. It's just that you don't know because of the spiritual dirt. So if I remove the dirt, what happens? The self reveals itself. So they don't say you attain the self. Attaining is only something which you don't have, which you're not, which you're already. How can you attain it? You become it. It's already, you're there. It reveals, the self reveals itself. And a beautiful example in the context is given of a brasso vessel. Imagine there is a brasso vessel, a brass vessel, which is tarnished. You take a cleaning agent, you can take a brasso or any other agent to clean the vessel. When you put in effort and remove the dirt, you've only removed the dirt, but you're not given the shine to that vessel. Shining is an inherent trait or attribute of the vessel. You can't give shine to the vessel. What you have only removed with your finite effort is removed the dirt. So your finite efforts of gaining wisdom through Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana only removes the finite obstacles of your attachments and desires and ego. When the imperfections of your attachment, desire, and ego is removed, what reveals is the pure, immaculate self reveals itself. I can't say I've given shine to the vessel. Sorry, I can't hear you, Joe. 1 minute.
Guruji, what I understand is the process of self-realization is actually a process of self-discovery. If I...
Yeah, can. It is a self-discovery. You're not inventing anything new. It's all there. The problem is we have not gone inward to see it. We only gone outward to explore the world. You will explore the world within you. Right, sir? So this is a very beautiful idea, which tells that the finite, now it makes sense. The finite can never give the infinite. That's what the previous mantra said. The intellect cannot grasp the self because it is not something which can be grasped. So the finite can only give you finite results. Finite can never give infinite. So what the finite result can do is it only removes the imperfections. Infinite thou art. You are that very self. See, you need to be very mindful because they talk in a very typical Upanishadic language. So if you had not interpreted the word eternal used twice in the mantra, you will get completely different meaning. So you have to examine, you have to pause, you have to make right sense. Otherwise, you may be misled. Okay. We'll continue. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.